A peaceful protest of Azerbaijani eco-activists and NGO representatives against ecocide in Karabakh, where the Russian peacekeepers are temporarily dislocated, has been underway on the Shusha-Khankendi road for about 2 weeks. The discussion at the UN Security Council provided yet another platform for Azerbaijan to raise its legitimate concern, including deliberate, continuous and uncorrected violations by Armenia of its commitments undertaken within the trilateral statement of 10 November 2020 and informs the wider international community about the situation. Latest updates on Lachin road situation in our edition now. Welcome to CBC Weekly Talk. I'm Anastasia Lavrina, and my guest now from Bulgaria is Sebastian Busva, who is an associate researcher in Montreal and Brussels international conflict specialist. Hello, welcome to our program. And the first question, definitely, before we move on to discussing the main topic now, I would like to ask you to tell us more about your vision on the situation in the South Caucasus.
I think that it's very interesting and very important to see and to watch what's going to happen now for the next years in the South Caucasus, because the question and the issue is not just to sign a kind of ceasefire. Now we have, and Azerbaijan and Armenia have to build the peace. And I think that the job which is done by President Ilham Aliyev and Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, is very interesting and is very essential. Because first, to get a peace and to get a real, let's say, sustainable peace, you need to have a political process and you have to see all these people going in the same direction. And I think that what is done for now 2 years between Azerbaijan and Armenia is the proof that the two political power want peace and want to do everything to make peace and to make it sustainable and more easy for the societies. Now, the second point is how to reconcile the societies. I think it's very important to support the economy, of course, of Karabakh. It's very important to open the roads, and it's very important to protect now the heritage, a part of this cultural heritage which was destroyed by Armenian occupation. Now it's fundamental to make of Karabakh a real kind of protected area, but a protected area and a safe area. That's why it's very important, first for Armenians to finally give all the mines maps to unmine and undermine all the area, and then after to make everything for Azerbaijan to help people coming back to their native lands. I went in May in Shusha and I went in Akhdam, and it's just very sad to see the situation of Akhdam because it was an amazing cultural places for all the South Caucasus, and now everything is destroyed. So I think that once borders will be fixed, once roads will be built and open, once people will be back, you have, and that's my last point on this issue, you have to rebuild a real life with real people, with real economy, with real culture, and with a real will of make of Karabakh now a very dynamic and very positive and cultural area.
Well, you mentioned civil society. Perhaps it's a time for ethnic Armenians who are currently living in the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan to join a peaceful action on the Shusha-Khankendi road. These can be considered as the first step when the civil society act together.
Exactly. That this point is very interesting because during the 27 years of occupation, Armenian and pro-independentist forces just destroy all the environment, just didn't give a shit of the ecological issues, and that's very sad because this is a kind of natural reserve in South Caucasus. What the ecologists are saying is that the way that Armenia destroyed the nature and tried to destroy as well the ground by exploiting all the sources and taking all the rare lands and things like that is not an issue now for Karabakh. Everything has to be protected, and it's going to be very positive for both of countries and for both of societies, because Karabakh is full of nature, is full of trees, is full of rivers, and it can be a real place of investment. And that's why I think it's very important to first protect the area, and then after to find a way to attract investors. I know that KSA, for example, is very excited now to invest in Karabakh, and I think that many countries would like to do it. But first, the place has to be safe. Secondly, the place has to be protected, and from that point, it will be now very exciting and very positive to attract investors. And then after, you will have many tourists and you will have many people who will come in Karabakh. But then Armenians have to stop the way they are trying to destroy this place.
How will you define the position of Brussels? The statement of the High Representative of the EU for Foreign Policy and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, said that the EU has decided to send a long-term mission to Armenia. Based on the agreement between the leaders of Armenia, Azerbaijan, the Council, the European Council, and France that was held in Prague, the European Union monitoring mission was deployed in Armenia on the border with Azerbaijan on 20th October, and the period it was until December 19. Baku does not approve this decision of the European Union to send the long-term mission to Armenia. What do you think about this?
I think that Brussels has a real key role to play in this situation, because usually we say that Europe is very strong economically. Well, from the starting of the war in Ukraine, I'm not sure of that, but it's supposed to be very strong economically. But sometimes Europe is not very strong on a political aspect, and especially Europe can play the role of mediator in many international and regional crises, but sometimes Europe, and especially Brussels, doesn't have the means or the willing, because we are too many states, we are too many leaders, and sometimes it's very difficult to speak on the same voice. What is doing Charles Michel is very interesting for both peace between the two countries. I think that the different rounds of negotiations in Brussels between President Ilham Aliyev and Nicole Pashinyan are going in the right way. Sometimes some troubles happen on the ground and on the let's say on the ground in Karabakh. But the most important is the work and the hard work that both countries are doing with Brussels to fix the borders, and then after to make a new life possible in Karabakh. And that's the very important role of Charles Michel. So I know that Azerbaijan sometimes thinks that Russia is too close to Armenia because of the military agreement and all that stuff. And I know that in Lachin there were some problems as well because of the way that Russian forces were trying to say, hey, we are still here, even if it's the war in Ukraine, we are still trying to fix the things. And Russia is, let's say, the key actor of this crisis. I think now that even if Aliyev and Pashinyan met Vladimir Putin in Sochi a few weeks ago, I think it's very important now for Europe to take the advantage of the situation, and because both of these countries want to respect the international law. And I know that Azerbaijan is trying really to separate from history, from past, and especially from Russian influence. And that's a very good way to say, okay, let's give a chance to Europe to fix the peace and to build together the peace, because who's going to invest a lot of money in Karabakh and between the two countries? Of course, Europe. Who is excited by the Azerbaijanese gas? Europe once again. So I think that's a very good thing, the way that Brussels is trying to be a real stakeholder in the situation.
Well, yes, Brussels wants to take an active part in shaping the peace agenda in the South Caucasus, to act as a platform for two leaders to meet in Brussels. But what Charles Michel does and what statements Josep Borrell makes, as you can see, are not always beneficial for peaceful development of the agenda in the region.
Yes, probably, but I think that you have to go inside the European affairs to know a bit more about that story. There is a little gap between Charles Michel's team and the external service. And I think that this project more of the external service than from Charles Michel. So, it's very difficult sometimes to understand the way that Europe is trying to decide. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. But I think that even the way that Emmanuel Macron tried to find a solution, especially when there was the launching of the European Conference on Security 2 months ago, I think it's very important as well to give a chance to the leaders. Sometimes in this kind of process, when it takes too much time, all the administration is trying to make a big mess in these stories. But I think that at the end, the leaders, and especially Charles Michel and Macron, will try to get out of this administrative turmoil that is sometimes very, very specific to Brussels and who sometimes blocks all the situations, which is a shame.
Well, it's hard to imagine that France will decide to withdraw from the process, because in Armenia it seems the only chance for itself to maintain influence in the region of the South Caucasus. And we shouldn't forget about the Armenian lobby in France, which is quite also powerful, that will continue to destabilize the situation, definitely. That's my opinion, but the next question I want you to comment is, despite the destructive actions of some and some statements of the European politicians, the EU continues to see Azerbaijan as a reliable energy partner. This is evidenced by frequent meetings, visits and new documents signed between two sides. What can you tell us about this particular issue?
I think that that's very exciting and very important to see the way that now Europe is trying to be less and less dependent of the Russian gas. It was probably too much to be connected to Russia for the gas, and especially Germany, of course. But I think the way that Europe, and I spend my time criticizing Europe because I'm not very excited of this Europe. I'm very excited about the European idea, but sometimes this Europe just gets me on nerves. But I think that the way now Brussels is trying to split their different providers of gas between United States, of course, between Norway as well, but Qatar and Azerbaijan is a very good opportunity to improve the relations, especially between Brussels and Baku. Of course, there is a connection because Azerbaijan is in the European Council for a long time. But I think that the way we try to make the relations more and more stronger between Europe and Azerbaijan is a way as well to help Europeans understand Azerbaijan, understand the region, because sometimes for Europeans, South Caucasus is that far. They even probably don't know where to put Azerbaijan and Armenia and Georgia on a roadmap. So I think that now that Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, came in last July in Baku to sign this great agreement is a very good thing for both parties. It's a positive and mutual agreement for both of the countries. Now it's possible for Azerbaijan to sell more gas, and we expect to get more and more billions of cubic meters of gas in the next 10 years. So,
yes, right, for sure. Thank you so much for joining the program today. Thank you. So we continue to talk about the situation on Shusha-Khankendi road, where a peaceful protest of Azerbaijani eco-activists and NGO representative against ecocide in Karabakh, where the Russian peacekeepers are located, has been underway, as I already mentioned, on Shusha-Khankendi road for about 2 weeks. Now I have two special guests. I will introduce them. The first is Damian Krunevich-Mishkovich, who is a director for policy research, analysis and publication in the Institute for Development and Diplomacy of Ada University. Damian, welcome to our program.
Oh, thank you very much. It's good to be back.
Thank you so much. And our special guest from Italy, Sandro Tetti, Italian publisher, political scientist, founder and head of the publishing house, Sandro Tetti. Sandro, hello and welcome to our program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will start with the most sensitive issue. I would like you to express your vision of the situation on the road, Shusha-Khankendi. How do you see the situation? And if you don't mind, Damian, I would like you to start it.
Clearly, there's the illegal mining issue, which is obviously important. That's not the only grievance. We've seen, presumably, some of us at least have seen the video of the pollution in the Orchu River, for example, and all these things. And I don't want to diminish the importance of the ecological aspect of this, nor do I want to diminish the importance of the illegality of all of this. But I think that's really not the fundamental issue. The fundamental issue in this context is the fact that nothing that has to do with the Zangezur corridor has been implemented, and pretty much everything that has to do with the Lachin corridor has been implemented, right? And so you have this fundamental issue that's now since more than 2 years since the signing of the tripartite statement in November 2020. There has been no serious tangible progress with regards to unblocking the Zangezur corridor. And I want to make this. I want to emphasize how important the language of the tripartite statement is. The arrangement of unobstructed movement of persons, vehicles, and cargo in both directions. Right. That's the formulation about Zangezur, and the formulation for Lachin is actually less explicit than that. And so we have this very obvious disparity between the commitments that were made by Armenia on the one hand and Azerbaijan on the other hand. And that simply needs to be acknowledged. And to be perfectly honest, that's one of the things that those who examine this issue without reference to this simply are ignoring. And I assume that it's willful ignorance. This is something that needs to be remedied. The fundamental issue is adherence to the terms of the document that ended the war.
Exactly. The key element from that document, as you mentioned, I mean, the paragraph where it says that the illegal armed formations of Armenia also has to be withdrawn from the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan at the same time while the Russian peacekeepers are coming to the region. This point and this paragraph from that statement has not been implemented yet. And Sandro, I would like you to tell us more about the situation on Lachin Road. The ecologists and eco-activists in Azerbaijan, yes, they want to get the permission to go and investigate the situation in Hankandi. But another issue, they want to prevent the usage of the Lachin Road for any purposes to deliver the military equipment or the mines to the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan, where the Russian peacekeepers are temporarily located. What do you think about this?
No, I think that now this situation is connected with the with a wider situation. I mean, the problem between Azerbaijan and France, and in the last period, Azerbaijan and the United States, because I remember that both these countries expressed disappointed about the situation. They claim that Azerbaijani forces are creating obstacle to the free passing of deliveries of people and so on.
Yeah,
But
exactly. They're speaking about the blockage of the Lachin Road. How they call it?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. But this is not true, and on the contrary, the Azerbaijani side guarantees the help, eventually help to the Armenian population living in this area, and I think that this situation is a result of international situation. Because in one hand, I don't understand why France, that is totally isolated, is supporting so openly Armenia side. And about the United States, I understand because they won't create problems to Russia, because they are now in very difficult, not difficult, but even worse relations.
Sandro,
And
yes, I understand what
about
you are saying, but I wanted you to comment also about the usage of the Lachin road for inappropriate situation, like the deliverance, as I already mentioned, of the military techniques and the mines by Armenia within the last 2 years and even before to the Karabakh region of Azerbaijan. We know that many mines were delivered to the region after the signing of the trilateral statement, which also contradicts to the agreement achieved by the leaders.
I think that they want just create problems, additional problems. I no other explanation in my opinion. They want um, to obstacle the peaceful solution, because we know that this corridor is vital for the peaceful development of all the region, because you can link Europe through Turkey with the Caucasus, and it's the opening of this corridor will be even for Armenia a good thing.
Yes, Damian, I would like you to tell us about the reaction of the international community. We know that United Nations Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs, Miroslav Encha, urged the international community to prevent Armenia and Azerbaijan from resuming their conflict. Do you think that intervention of the international community in this process can be useful?
Well, you know, if you consider Russia to be part of the international community, the Russians are already present on the ground there. If you consider Turkey to be part of the international community, Turkey is also present on the ground there in the joint, what is it called, ceasefire monitoring center, which, as you know, is located just near Agdam, right? So you already have 2 UN member states, one of which is a permanent member of the Security Council that is present on the ground, and both countries are in one way or another part of the international community. So that's the first point. Second of all, until very recently, as you know, you had a small European Union mission on the ground that was sent for budgetary reasons from Georgia to do some preliminary work. They were there for less than 2 months. They've gone. So you know, that capacity always exists. I think the question really is, you know, how much more of the international community do you need? It seems to me that really the way to solve this problem is to get Azerbaijan and Armenia talking to each other again, directly or through the participation of either the Europeans or the Russians or the Americans or whatever they agree on. But the point is that the solution here, it seems to me, really is as much direct discussion as possible, and adherence by all sides to all of the terms of the various, not just of the ceasefire agreement or of the agreement that ended the war in November 2020, but all of the subsequent documents that that have been agreed.
And I'm sorry, you said about Russia, but we know that in Yerevan they are dissatisfied with the behavior of the Russian peacekeepers in the region, and Nikol Pashinyan already said about that at the meeting that was held in Armenia.
Yes, I understand that Pashinyan is dissatisfied with the Russians, and I understand that there are people in Baku who are dissatisfied with the Russians. But on the other hand, to try to fundamentally change the makeup of any kind of foreign presence on the ground, whether it's peacekeepers or just civilians, without getting all of the parties to agree to this in advance, I think is a recipe for more instability and not less instability. So sooner or later, some kind of a serious discussion is going to be required involving all of the relevant players, beginning with Yerevan and Baku, but also the Russians and the Turks and others, to see how the current dissatisfaction can be overcome with the least amount of turbulence possible. Because if anybody is envisioning fundamental change at this point in the game, given what's going on in other geopolitical theaters, many of which are neighboring geopolitical theaters, I think this is clearly not conducive to a process that could result in success.
Damian, can the current escalation of tension and incidents threaten the derailed, fragile process achieved within the last months?
Well, yes, I think that we have this. I think all of us who are observing this, the situation on the ground, again, in the context of the larger geopolitical developments that are taking place in other parts in neighboring parts of the world and of the region, I think it's disconcerting to hear calls to fundamentally reconfigure the makeup of the international presence. I think that's a stalling tactic, and it's clearly not going to produce the kind of result that all right-minded people, it seems to me, are trying to produce, which is ultimately a comprehensive peace agreement on the one hand between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and on the other hand, the normalization of relations between Turkey and Armenia.
What kind of advantages do you see from this peaceful action on the road, Shusha-Khankendi? One of the advantages which I can mention personally is the fact that the international community can know more about the situation in Karabakh region of Azerbaijan, especially when it comes to the ecology. What else, what kind of advantages we can mention now?
For example, in Italy, we speak a lot about Azerbaijan as a very important commercial political partner, but about the problems in Karabakh, in liberated territories, we are very few information. I would like to see that I'm totally agree with the colleague, the professor of the other university, that the most important thing is to promote a meeting between all the parties. I mean, Turkey, Russia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, and to try again to convince Armenian to change their mind, to change. To stop they attempt to obstacle the peaceful solution.
Damian, I want to talk with both of you about another very important and significant issues to the region of the South Caucasus. Apart from this, we know that the European Union is thinking about Azerbaijan as about a very reliable energy partner. It comes to the green energy, to electricity, to the fuels, and etc. Two sides are willing to sign more documents to think about the enlarging the scope of cooperation, especially in the energy sphere. And the last meeting and the visits exactly shows that not only the countries of the European Union, but also Serbia and some other states are willing to work with Azerbaijan. Talking about your past experience working in Serbia, we can do it next time. Now we don't have much time for this, but I would like you to overall sum up the situation and maybe to tell us more about this particular issue.
Sorry, the energy issue. Yeah, look, all of this began, or the latest phase of this strategic cooperation began with the memorandum of understanding that was signed in July between President Aliyev and Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission. This MOU, that's genuinely historic MOU, it's a political declaration in a way, had three basic elements: doubling the capacity of gas provided to the EU market through the Southern Gas Corridor by 2027 on the basis of adequate financing arrangements, long-term contracts predicated on positive market tests, and all the rest of it. The second provision has to do with the provision of green electricity to the EU market. And then the third is clean hydrogen energy. So let's just focus on the second, because that's the news that happened recently, right? Green electricity is directly relevant to answering the question about the quadripartite deal that was signed last week in Bucharest, right? This is an agreement, again, it's an MOU, so it's a political declaration on essentially creating an undersea or building an undersea cable from the Georgian coast to the Romanian coast, involving four core countries. Azerbaijan, that will produce electricity mainly through wind and a little bit through solar. Georgia, that will produce hydroelectricity. All of this goes into the undersea cable. It ends up in Romania. Romania and Hungary are the two EU countries that will take most of this electricity, this green electricity that is supposed to be produced. There are reports going around that Serbia is interested in purchasing some of this electricity, Slovakia apparently as well, perhaps Bulgaria. President Aliyev in Bucharest talked about a time horizon of 5-6 years, so 2027, more or less. And this corresponds also to another element of this core foundational MOU that was signed in July, again, between himself and the president of the European Commission, right? So in 2027, what are we going to see if all of this happens the way it's foreseen to happen? We're going to see the doubling of Azerbaijani gas going into the European Union and the European market in general. And we're going to see now the production of, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 gigawatts of electricity produced by entirely through green means from Azerbaijan and from Georgia, that is going to enter into Southeast Europe, so into these two EU countries and then perhaps some others. All in all, this really does represent the foundation for a very, very long-term strategic energy partnership between Azerbaijan and the European Union, and that's good news for everybody. It's truly a win-win, and it's very difficult to imagine how any of the parties concerned could be opposed to it. And as far as I can tell, nobody, again, in the context of all of the stakeholders and all of the players in this, are opposed. And all of this is really great news. It's great financially, it's great geopolitically, it's great, obviously, economically, and it's also, ecologically very important. This is the production of green energy is an integral part of the fulfillment of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This flagship UN agreement that was signed by heads of state in 2015, and that I had something to do with at least structuring the negotiations about a couple of years earlier. So this is all wonderful news. And
yeah,
it's
Damian,
wonderful.
so we are again coming to the green energy, and this is very important for all countries of the European Union. And the peaceful action of eco-activists in Azerbaijan, we know that in Karabakh, Azerbaijan is dedicated particularly much attention to the development of renewable energy, green energy. Then the result of these actions, the future coexistence, and the peaceful development of the situation should be in the interest of the European Union, right?
It should be. That would conform entirely to EU priorities in the context of all of this, all of these policies and all of this rhetoric that has to do with greening Europe. Absolutely.
And just a small comment about the relations between Azerbaijan and Serbia. Taking again into account your experience, I guess you also contributed to what we see today. Two countries are willing to develop and enlarge the scope of cooperation in different spheres, and energy is one of these.
Well, I'm proud to have had something to do with the establishment of the strategic partnership more than a decade ago, but let's not talk about the past. I think that the recent visits by President Aliyev to Serbia and then the reciprocal visit by the current president of Serbia to Azerbaijan a couple of days ago shows that there really are three basic areas of strategic cooperation between our two countries. The first is defense cooperation. The second is energy, and the third is trade. Apparently, the president of Serbia said at the end of his visit here a couple of days ago, he spoke of establishing a direct flight by Air Serbia between Belgrade and Baku by the end of 2023. Let's see if that happens. It would be, of course, magnificent if it in fact were to happen. But if I can focus on defense cooperation for a second, this is actually very important because again, based on the public reports and the reading of the speeches that the two leaders made, the idea here really is to strengthen that cooperation. Both sides learning from each other, both sides looking at the best practices in terms of producing various types of armaments and weapons, and then coming together to build something new, or at least to improve on existing products that both countries have, and then to place these sorts of products in third countries. I think that's a very interesting development. Obviously, the energy aspect is very important. Serbia had previous opportunities to join the Southern Gas Corridor. This was not done for reasons that we can discuss another time, but clearly there is now a recognition that for Serbia to get in on the doubling of capacity of the Southern Gas Corridor is in its national interest, and obviously that's the case. There is going to be an interconnector that is scheduled to be completed by the end of next year between Bulgaria and Serbia that will take advantage of Azerbaijani gas that's going to go through the Southern Gas Corridor. Fantastic, and there's room to grow there. And obviously the trade numbers, I think that both sides recognize that these numbers can increase, and hopefully they will, because there's a lot of compatibility between sort of the supply and the demand in various sectors of the economy of both countries, and I think that could be advantageous to everybody concerned.
Right, Sandro, I have the final question to you also about energy partnership, because you are staying in Italy, and Italy is one of the leading countries in the European Union which is willing to develop the partnership with Azerbaijan in many different spheres, and particularly in energy. So what kind of perspective do you see when it comes to green energy, to the fuels, and any other spheres of cooperation?
I think that the cooperation between our two countries will grow, and will grow in the field of gas, of course, because as Dan told before, in 2027 the tap will be double the capacity of transporting gas to Europe, to Italy. But I know that a lot of Italian companies are interested in investing in wind energy and solar energy in your country. And finally, I would like to underline the very essential importance of gas as a transitional energy, because now unfortunately we observe the growing use of coal, that it's very polluting, and we need I mean, Italy and Europe, we need more and more gas to substitute coal and oil.
Well, dear expert, thank you so much for joining the program today. Let's see how the situation will be developed after. Thank you. Just to remind you, watch CBC Weekly Talk. I'm Anastasia Lavrina. See you in the next edition.